Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm working on a set of cornhole boards. These are actually not for us, they're for Elaina's sister who is getting married next month, and this is kind of a surprise wedding gift. So we're gonna customize them, make them a Penn State theme and put some other cool features on and build them to last a lifetime. I have my saw and the Craig AccuCut behind me ready for work, so let's get started. This seems absolutely insane, but I'm gonna be ripping the 2x4s for the frames of these out of some 2x12s that I got from an old shipping pallet from work. Lumber is ridiculously expensive right now. I refuse to pay $10 for a 2x4x8 piece of lumber. So I got these for free. It's a shame to waste a 12-inch board, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I just sketched out some rough plans with dimensions I found online, and this whole thing is going to basically be held together with pocket screws and glue. I drilled some test holes in this scrap to do some trial and error. That way I knew my screw wouldn't poke through the front of my plywood. Now it's time to start on the legs. I found 4 2x4 scraps that are all at least 14 inches long. I'm gonna trim them to exact length later. The important thing is that the top of the board is 12 inches off of the ground when the legs are fully unfolded. So I'll start by marking off the ends in a round shape with the compass, cutting them on my bandsaw, and then mounting them to the boards. I had these big 4-inch carriage bolts laying around. I'm going to use these, a big washer, and a matching nut to hold the legs on. I'm pretty much eyeballing the right angle, and it's just about the space width of another 2x4, so that's where I'm going to clamp it to drill. I want these to be able to sit totally flush inside the board. I didn't realize that until now, and I'm going to trim off a 1/4 inch of these 2x4s in order to make that easier. So here's something that most channels don't show you, and that's when they screw up. I clamped this in here vertically when I drilled this hole, and I thought that was the best idea at the time, so I could space this out properly. But then I realized that if your radius isn't perfect, the thing won't fold down flat. So basically, I should have done this. Put this on the side a little bit and even shimmed it up a little so that my hole was almost right in the middle of my board. And as you can see, it is much lower. But this is how I'm going to fix it. Little 1/2-inch dowel plug. I actually turned this from some scrap because I didn't have 1/2-inch, but it's tapered at the end, and I'm going to just glue it in there and drill a new one. That's more like it. This edge here should be about 12 inches above the ground when it's in playing position. So I stacked it on some stuff to approximately get that height. I'm just gonna mark this and copy it on the other 3 legs. I think these will look better with the ends cut off slightly. Just gonna take a 1/2 inch off each. Now that the legs are done, I'm going to put the hole in. It's a 6-inch diameter hole. Obviously it's centered on the board and it's 9 inches down from the top edge. I'll just lay that out with a tape measure and a compass. They make 6-inch hole saw bits for this, but I didn't have one. Now with the 1/8-inch rounding bit and my router, I'm just going to go over all the sharp edges of both boards and my legs. For the bag storage box on the back of one board, I used 1x stock for the sides and a piece of 1/4 inch MDF with maple veneer for the top. I just experimented with the bags themselves in order to establish the size. The hinges I used I just had laying around, and I needed a route out clearance space for the hardware. Everything got a good sanding with 220 grit. Followed by a wipe down with a damp cloth to remove the dust. I put 1 coat of Minwax Golden Oak stain on everything.
Now that the cornhole boards are built, it is now my turn to take over, where I will be painting a PSU logo on each of the boards. So what I did to get my stencil is I took a logo that I liked, which is the Penn State logo. I put it in an Excel file, and Excel makes it really easy for you to split an image over multiple pages. So I just printed this out on 4 sheets of printer paper, and then I went ahead and cut out the white portions of the logo. The next step is to stencil this onto each board. What I did is I went ahead and put some sticky tack on the back of my template, and then I will use that to hold this down to the board.
It actually took 4 coats of this acrylic paint to achieve full coverage. Alright, Elaina finally finished painting these. It took a little longer than she thought because the wood really soaked up a lot of that acrylic paint well, but it looks really good now, and I am ready to put clear coat on this. I'm going to be using a Minwax oil-based polyurethane. I've already actually done a couple coats on the bottom surfaces and all of the inside crevices there, and I'm now going to do the top as well. I'm going to put 3 coats on the top. After that first coat, the wood grain kind of raises up and it gets real rough. So I'll just do a really light sand with 320 grit, especially being careful over the paint. I did have Elaina paint up a test piece to make sure, George, this test piece was just to make sure that the clear coat reacted well with the paint and that the sanding idea on the paint wasn't going to totally ruin it. But it turned out well, and it's going to be a really nice smooth finish. The sanding was really light, just the weight of a wood scrap pulled across 1 time on each surface with 320 grit underneath of it. Okay, coating is finally done. I ended up putting 4 coats on just for good measure, but I really like how it turned out. It's pretty smooth, but not so smooth that the beanbags are gonna go flying off. And now I think we are ready to finally start assembling the legs and the back door. I'm using carriage bolts to hold the legs on, and they have a little square feature to prevent it from rotating. So I'll just hammer these in to make that square, and then I will spray paint the heads black. Now for the lid to the little beanbag box. Remember, I routed out these grooves for these hinges to fit in. And so I'm just basically gonna mark where this is gonna go, mount it on the door, and then mount it in here to the board. Before I tighten these up, I'm going to use some Loctite blue on them just so that these screws don't back off. Now I needed to find a way to lock this thing, so what I ended up doing was just making my own. I scuffed this little area right here. I'm going to glue this block in, and then it's just got a screw with a little domino that will serve as a lock. Time to throw the legs on. Just gonna put my carriage bolt through from the back side. Definitely also use Loctite on these bolts when you tighten them. All right, I think this one's at least ready. Oh, there she is. Feet are relatively flat. That's good. I think it looks good. Time to test it out. This was a total fluke. I'm not that good at cornhole. So that's a wrap on the cornhole board project. I'm really pleased with how they turned out, and eventually I'll probably make some plans for this, so look in the future down in the description for a link to those. I'm really excited. We're finally going out to Pittsburgh this weekend to deliver these to Elaina's sister and her new husband as a wedding present. Really looking forward to the celebration, and congrats to Missy and Joe on their new life together. Thanks for following along on this build. I hope you got something out of it, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Can't forget the most important part.